Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. Blenderhead. Blender HD, if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Friday, May 12th. It's Fighting Friday. We got an MMA card tomorrow. UFC Charlotte? They're in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's an early card, okay? Just remember it's early. Don't get up late and, half the card's over, right? The start time is 12:30, 11:30 in the morning. It may be noon now, but it's going to be early. It's an early one. They're going to have some on it's on ABC. That's the main reason. So make sure you get up early. Me and Mike H3 Buddha will be on Crunch Time tomorrow. That's currently scheduled for 10:45 a.m. leading you up until lock. But now I'm going to take a first look see about DFS strategy and construction for tomorrow's UFC card. Give me those thumbs ups. Give me the thummy thumbs in the morning. Right, you know how much I love the thummy thumbs. The early birds are here. D-Fick, Wattaz, Bart B, Suki Singh, Joe Mack, Daniel Hutchins. Good morning. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Remember, programming note. This will be the last DFS pregame show until June 1st. Okay, so if you don't see me, I'm not dead. Right? If you don't, where'd the show go? Oh, did Jordan get fired? No, I'm on vacation. I'm going to Alaska, going to Las Vegas. I'll be gone. I'll be gone Monday through all the way to the 31st. I'll be back on June 1st. So have fun without me. Have fun. What are you going to do in the morning without me? I don't know. Do something better, I guess. But we got this UFC card tomorrow, and it's not a very appealing one. I think it's the least appealing one of recent memory. Right? I'm going to come on the show and go, you shouldn't play tomorrow's card. You shouldn't play tomorrow's slate. Right? If you had a choice, tomorrow's slate isn't it? We lost a fight. We lost the fight this morning. We lost the Natan Levy, Pete Rodriguez fight. So that fight is off. So now we're down to 11 fights. And once we start getting to these number of fights, not a big fan of playing these cards because that drastically reduces the amount of combinations you can make in lineups, which leads to even more duplication. Okay, which means you have to find even weirder ways to be unique, the under fives, stuff like that. Hold on. My dog is barking uncontrollably. Hold on a second. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so 11 fight card. What do we always talk about? What do we always talk about when it comes to MMA card? The two contextual variables that we should be looking at when determining what is more or less likely to be the nut lineup, right? The optimal lineup, the best possible combination that you can make of 6 fighters. And that's typically in GPP, typically large field GPPs, the winning lineup is going to be the nut lineup or very, very close to the nut lineup. Well, the two contextual variables, we go over this every Friday, right? Fights on the card, number of fights, size of the slate, and spreads of the fighters. So we know how many fights on the slate, 11. So we have a smaller slate, not the smallest slate. We've had some 9 and 10 fight slates before. 11 is still on the smaller side. So with less fights, what are we doing? We prioritize. There's more weight towards win equity. There's more weight, especially for the underdogs, right? On a 15-fight card, we have a lot more options, which means, Mandy Bohm at 7,300, putting up 68 points in a win or something like that on a 15-fight card likely doesn't make the nut lineup. It's much less likely. But on an 11-fight card, if she's the only underdog that wins, well, she's probably going to be in the nut lineup, right? And there's only 11 fights. Okay, so we're going to be putting a little bit more emphasis on win equity for underdogs than we would normally. And then the spreads of the fights will determine a salary range that the nut lineup is most likely to be towards. Now that we take a look at some of the odds, I put them in like late Wednesday, so some of these may have been updated a little bit by now, but it shouldn't change that much. So we have all the 9K fighters are at least 3-1 favorites. We have 3 4-1 favorites. We have Jailton Almeida is almost a 5-1 favorite. Minus 490, minus 410, minus 420. Ian Gary's minus 310. Even in this high 8K range, we have over 2-1 favorites. Court McGee's minus 230. Alex Morono minus 225. Okay? The spreads of the fights, we have much more heavier favorites. It's not like last week. It's not like the week before where, the 9K options were only like minus 200, minus 185, minus 210. These are much bigger favorites, which means they're much more likely to win, which means there's less likely a lot of underdogs do win tomorrow based on the odds. It could happen, sure. Yeah, we can get multiple upsets. It can happen, but it's less likely to happen. So because the spreads of the fights are much wider, it means that less underdogs are likely to win, which means the nut lineup is more and more likely to use most, if not all, of the salary. And now you can see, using those two contextual variables, why I'm not a big fan of this slate from a playability standpoint, from a duplication standpoint. We got a small card with big favorites, meaning that, hey, you're more likely to play a 49-6 lineup, a 49-8 lineup, right? Less likely to play a 48,000, to leave 2,000 on the table, because it's much less likely that 4 out of the 6 highest point fighters are going to be 4 underdogs. It's more likely to be out of the favorites. And because it's an 11-fight card, there's so much less options, which means how do you remove duplication in small option type of contests? A lot of times it's leaving money on the table. So as you leave, okay, I could get a lineup that's only duplicated twice, but it leaves 1,200 on the table. Sure. But the likelihood of that lineup winning is much lower than on any other slate because we have so many big favorites. So it's like you get it like a catch-22 type of problem. As you start going down in salary, your win probability starts going down lower and lower because the likelihood that the nut lineup is going to be a higher priced lineup, and you don't have many options. So it's 11-fight card like that. That's why I don't find it that appealing. I've already started withdrawing some of my entries, right? I'm probably going to end up playing 40 large field entries, and that's it. Maybe I'll play the one lineup in the 555, and I'm not even sure about that because the paths to these lineups are not that great. I mean, like it's even the fact if you break down the fights, which you can. We have the MMA Ground and Pound podcast. That's premium members only. So click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. Get RotoGrinders Combo Premium. You'll get access to the MMA Ground and Pound podcast. You'll get access to the expert survey, to our projections, our ownership projections, or everything. So listen to that. Then Mike and Liam, they break down the fights. But if you look at the way that, like from a DraftKings perspective of how these fighters score, like there's kind of a big gap. We have a bunch of fighters that like are very obvious when they win are probably going to put up a big score. And then we have a lot of fighters that it's quite obvious when they win, it's very unlikely that they do, right? Because we have Kim, Morono, Stamen, even Ian Gary. I mean, really just one kind of one-dimensionally type of strikers. And then we got guys like Almeida and Carl Williams, right? Even Carlos Ulberg, like based on volume, other than that Sharon fight, I mean, he's minus 175 inside the distance. He's a little bit more he's much more knockout dependent for 100 plus points. But Almeida and Williams kind of like stand out amongst everyone. Almeida for sure. He's in a 5-round main event. The main event, let's talk about it. I'm not even going to bother calling it a 5-round fight. Okay. This is Jailton Almeida versus Jairzinho Rosenstruck in heavyweight. Like, if this fight goes 5 rounds, like they'll be just passed out. Okay. Almeida has only gone past the first round once in his last fight. Jairzinho Rosenstruck barely has 3 rounds of cardio. And Rosenstruck is basically just a low-volume power puncher. And Almeida is just an athletic, wrestling, grappling, BJJ, everything beat. Ground and pound. I mean, it's a humongous favorite. I mean, Jelton Almeida is nearly a 5-1 favorite. His inside the distance line is minus 290. His round 1 odds are minus 110. If you're playing this, goes, oh well, I get 5 rounds. Like you should treat this almost like it's a 2-round fight, right? The fight being 5 rounds, I don't think makes much of a difference. And even if it went 5 rounds, it's hard to see Almeida not winning because of Rosenstruck. I don't know how he wins on the scorecards without knockdowns. So I don't even to me, the main event is this could be a 3-round dude. The Almeida Rosenstruck fight could be a 3-round fight, and Almeida still is going to be like 60% down. I don't think it matters. But like, there's a very big difference between like guys like that, and then the Cody Stamen, Douglas Silva. Well, Douglas Silva Andrade is plus 200. He could get a knockout, right? We have just a lot of fights that are more likely to go to decision. The Gary Daniel Rodriguez. We have like the Kim Bone fight, like that women's fight. The favorite is plus 400 inside the distance. We just have like Jessica Rose Clark is only plus 410 inside the distance. Court McGee hasn't finished anyone in 13 years, I believe 13. I think 13 years, right? Like this, to me, the fun matchup, if you want to call it fun, is the Court McGee Matt Brown matchup because it's basically just 2 old guys. Matt Brown's 42 years old. Court McGee is what, 30, 39, 30, something like that. Court McGee could wrestle. Sure, I guess he doesn't finish anyone. Matt Brown could knock someone out, but he's also 42 years old. So, I mean, one of these guys could just be completely washed, and the other guy just gets starched, right? Or it could be that they just have a nice sparring contest and they don't push each other or something. It could be, who knows? When 2 old guys go in, you never know what's going to happen. And then you have Tainara Lisboa, who has 5 wins. The combined record of all 5 of the women that she beat, there's only 1 win amongst them. Okay? The combined record of 5 fighters that she beat, a grand total of 1 win. And she hasn't fought in a while. So there's barely any tape and no one knows anything about her. And now she's the favorite over Jessica Rose Clark, right? It kind of flipped on the other side. So we have no idea what's going to go on in that one, right? So there's a lot of variance, but there's just like it's much more unlikely that you're not playing like at least one of these 9,300 and above guys, Alberg, Williams, or Almeida, because the likelihood of them putting because they're 4-1 favorites. The likely of none of them putting up like 110 points, 100 points may be fine on this slate because there's only 11 fights. So you may look and go, oh, Almeida's 9,600. If he just gets a quick, 90 seconds in, submission, he gets 102 points. It's like, well, that's not enough for 9,600. Well, on this slate, it could be enough. There's only 11 fights. 102 points at 9,600, maybe the 4th highest price, the 3rd or 4th, highest scoring fighter on the slate. And it's like, oh, he's still in the nut lineup, still optimal. So I'm finding it hard that to make combinations that seem reasonable that aren't duped massively enough. I mean, and I consider anything over 5 to be too much. I'm aiming for under 5. If I end up getting between 5 and 10s, I prefer not. But it happens. Anything over that is ridiculous. I don't want any of those lineups. Daniel Hutchings says an 11-fight card, lineups should be more duplicated at an equilibrium. Therefore, the bad lineups aren't as bad as they would normally be. So there's less edge. That would be correct. Right, because let's say you're going to build lineups, if we go in here, like that popular construction is going to be playing 2 of these guys up here. Actually, the mid-range is actually going to be less played, this mid-AK range. So let's say you played just the 2 highest price, Almeida and Williams. Right, you have 7 to 750 average salary. I think a lot of people are going to take a shot on Daniel Rodriguez against Ian Gary. right? End up playing the Walker-Smith fight, which is the most likely to end inside the distance, but good luck telling me who wins this one, right? These are two fighters that, I mean, they can knock each other out at any point. Anthony Smith maybe has a little bit more wrestling upside, but, I mean, talk about a variance fight. The $8,200, $8,000 fight. Neither of them probably score well in a decision, though. But the fight is like minus 300 to end inside the distance. So let's say you play Johnny Walker, 7,800. You play Lisboa, right? You got Battle there, right? You could do something like this. Maybe play Anthony Smith, Brian Battle. Like say, I think a lot of lineups will look something more like this. You'll see Almeida and Williams. You'll see one low underdog, right? Like a Rodriguez, Bohm, Means type of thing. And then they're going to just squeeze in the mid-range, the low mid-range. So it's going to be anywhere from Gabe Green to Silva de Andrade. So it's going to be three fighters from this range, plus the two from up there and one from down there. I think this is going to be the most popular construction. There aren't many combinations of this construction when you're paying $9,600 and $9,400, right? Because even if you pivot, I'm going to pivot from Carl Williams to Carlos Ulberg. Like it doesn't really, you don't shed that much uniqueness because Ulberg's going to be owned also, right? Well, I'm not going to play Almeida. I'm playing Williams and Ulberg. It's like, well, they're both going to be 40+% owned. I mean, you're not shedding that many lineups as you think. You are shedding lineups, but not that many. And then I think that if you don't play, right, if you play like a mid-range lineup, it's going to be much more unique. Let's say you play for leverage, you play Gary against Daniel Rodriguez, right? You play something like this. You play Gary, Court McGee. Maybe you end up playing, you play Pateria because you're not playing Ulberg or something like that. Or you pay all the way down there. You play Jessica Rose Clark, Cody Stamen, or Morono against Means, and you still Johnny. Maybe you could even throw in Johnny Walker, right? Like something like this, where you're not going further than Gary up top. And even if you don't want to go Gary, you could even go all in the mid range. Like those would be the less played combinations by far because you're not playing Almeida, you're not playing Williams, you're not playing Ulberg. But there's a problem here. It's an 11 fight card. Like these three fighters up top are the three most likely over all of the rest of the fighters on the slate to put up 100+ points, like by far over the rest of the fighters. So you those lineups that don't play any of those three guys rely on the fact that none of the three end up being in the optimal lineup. Right? It's not just like, oh, well, if two of them don't, like, no, if one of them does, you're screwed. Then once you start paying at least one, like that's truthfully, that would be something that I think would be the grouping that you would make to be less duped, is to make a group of just max one of Almeida, Williams, and Ulberg. I think I'm more likely to make a lineup with one of them than with none of them. Because that's the problem on the slate. It's an 11 fight card, and these three fighters have the highest ceilings by far. And I mean, obviously Almeida over Williams over Ulberg. But there's a lot of fights that are gonna, that are favored to go to scorecards and not have high wrestling volume or grappling volume, which means we're talking about 75-point striking decision, based decisions, which may be fine for the underdogs. Right? 11 fight card. Dude, there may only be one or two underdogs that win. You get them for 75 points, you win. You're good. You're good. You're done. But in the high range, you're going to play Jian Kim. I mean, at 8,900, how does she get 90+ points? Unless Mandy Bone just gets knocked out or something. I mean, yeah, it's MMA. It could happen. Dfs says, taking 4 to 5 underdogs still project high enough to be plus EV. I don't think so. That's the issue. That is the issue. It's that I would want to leave salary on the table on an 11 fight card to get less duped. But as I shed salary, the win probabilities just go down so dramatically. I mean, what's the lowest lineup that had, like, let's say we play Alberg. So let's think of a lineup that, like, uses at least one of the top ones, the top 9K fighters, and we leave money on the table and somewhat reasonable. Maybe we play Chase Sherman as leverage over Williams, and we don't play Rosenstruck because I think he'll be overowned because he's in the main event. Although I don't think it matters. So let's play Chase Sherman, right? We play Daniel Rodriguez, right? We could play Daniel Rodriguez. I mean, Silva de Andrade, maybe. I mean, Matt, like, how many underdogs do I want to play? Like, do I want to make a lineup like this that leaves 3,600 and plays 5 underdogs? No. But maybe Sherman, Rodriguez, and then you take Walker or Smith, right, in this mid-range fight, right? Maybe take Gabe Green or Brian Battle fight. And take Lisboa. I mean, yeah. I mean, it could happen. This isn't as bad as I thought. Even if you replace Alberg with Almeida, right? Well, whoops. Don't replace him with that. Even if I replace him with Almeida, I mean, I guess these are viable. You take out Sherman. You play Pateria instead. Yeah, I guess. I mean, but they have to be the top scorers. It's not just winning. Like, Daniel Rodriguez has to knock out Ian Gary. It's not just that's it. If you're going to start leaving money on the table, because I mean, 2,200. That means once you leave $2,200 on the table, that means these have to be the 6 highest scoring fighters. Because if they're not, you could always fit someone else in because you have 2,200 in salary. If Carlos Alberg outscores any of these guys, if Ian Gary outscores any of these guys, if Morono outscores any of these guys, this is not optimal. Because you could change any of these guys to those fighters. It's a little bit more viable than I thought, but I mean, the likelihood of this is much lower than on other slates. I'm much more likely, if I'm going to do something like this, we get rid of these lock buttons. I'm much more likely to, like, okay, Almeida, and then play somewhere in this range, right? Do Court McGee, right? Court McGee, pay up a little bit, pick Jessica Rose Clark against Lisboa, right? Maybe you go down. Maybe you play Silva de Andrade. Now you got some options. Maybe you play Morono, right? 6,800. Maybe something more like this. Then Chase Sherman. Right? Here's a 50K lineup that maybe in under 5. Right? I'm much more likely to do something like this, where I'm utilizing these mid 8K fighters that are going to be like around 20-ish% owned. Right? The Moronos, the Kim, even Kim, dude, 8,900 for Kim. I don't know where her ceiling is, but look, Yao Jinan knocked out Jessica Andrade last week, and that was like her first knockout in 17 million years or something. I don't know if she's ever gotten a knockout before. So, you use Kim, Morono, McGee, Stamen, Clark. Green's going to be owned. But, like, using these, I'm much more looking in this $8,400 to $8,900 range. Or even Gary. I think he may end up being a little overowned. I mean, he's not going to be that owned, but he may be overowned. I'd rather use multiple of these fighters and have a lineup that's duped 5 times than leave 2,200 on the table and have a lineup being duped twice. On this slate, I think the more likely scenario is that, like, only like 2 dogs win. Or 3 dogs, and one of the dogs they win, and it doesn't matter because the score isn't good enough. Like, I don't expect a slate where we see half the underdogs win. And the favorites that do win, like these 3 9K fighters, are much more likely to put up 120 points than they are to put up 70. So you're probably going to need one of them. So that's the balance. That's the balance of making a lineup that looks like that, but is not so heavily duplicated. Anything else? Anything else on my slate? I mean, I still need to fill out the rest of my sheet as of now. I mean, as of now, Almeida and Ulberg, right, and William. I mean, look. I mean, you can see right here, just on our ownership, which is going to change because this included the Levy Pete Rodriguez fight. So obviously, you can see here that it only adds up to 531. So this is going to change, right? I have to update some of the odds. I mean, from this standpoint, it looks like more like it's hard to ignore these 99K fighters, but I mean. We'll see a lot of Almeida Williams lineup. There's going to see a lot of Almeida Williams. We're going to see a lot of Almeida Ulbergs. A little bit less Williams Ulbergs. Just understand that Ulberg's path to victory is like knockout dependent. Like Ulberg isn't wrestling against Pataria, right? He's much more likely to be knocked out, I guess, right? In a firefight. I think Williams is going to be very popular because, he could chain wrestle. And Chase Sherman is he's known for not being good on the mat, but it is a heavyweight fight. And if you remember, this was the canceled fight from a couple of weeks ago, right? This was the fight. It was Carl Williams versus Chase Sherman, and then it got canceled after lock, right? That was this fight. I remember Carl Williams saying, like, before that fight, that he was planning on striking. This is why when you play UFC, when you play MMA DFS. I mean, we saw that last week with Kron Gracie. We see it every single week. Nothing against any of these guys specifically. It may be a little bit offensive, but I typically say, like, if these guys were smart, they wouldn't be fighters. Okay. So there's a lot of times we go into fights and it's like, well, it's obvious. It's obvious, like you have so much higher chance of winning if you just did this. And they just don't do it. Right? You see it, everyone sees it. Everyone sees that, it's what was it? Colby Covington or whoever? Who fought Alex Pereira? And said, I'm not even going to bother trying to take him down. Sean, someone, whoever. Who was it? Said, oh, I'm not going to take him down. I'm going to strike with the guy. Like with the world champion kickboxer. And it's like, no, well, obviously he shouldn't be doing that. If he wants to win the fight, he should be going for takedowns. Oh, Sean Strickland. Yeah, someone mentioned in the chat. And there were all the questions that week of like, yeah, obviously Sean Strickland's going to go for takedowns. He's not going to beat Alex Pereira on the feet. And then Sean Strickland's even going like, nope, I'm standing and trading. And people are going, come on, you're not that much of an idiot. And then he was that much of an idiot. Like, he said what he was going to do, right? Matt Pravola, he's putting out Twitter polls on what to do. Right? You think Carl Williams would be smart enough to go, well, this guy can't get up. So I'm just going to take him down as early as possible. We also saw in his last fight, he didn't all look that good cardio-wise in the third round. I'm not saying Chase Sherman's going to win, right? Because obviously he's a plus 330 underdog, right? Carl Williams is a 4-1 favorite. But let me tell you, I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked if Chase Sherman knocked him out. Not be shocked. He's plus 540 inside the distance. I mean, like this is purely based on. I'm just looking for variance. I mean, it's an 11-fight card. I'm just looking for where's their variance. Please find me variance that people are not going towards, right? Because you take a look and you go, oh, there's a lot of variance in Johnny Walker Anthony Smith fight, right? We take a look. Walker plus 130, Smith plus 150 inside the distance. This fight most likely ends not on scorecards by someone getting knocked out. Who is that going to be? I don't know. I mean, that's exactly the point. It's a pick 'em fight. And then you go, okay, I don't know who's going to win. Probably ends inside the distance. And then you take a look at ownership, and it's like, oh, both fighters are going to be 30 to 35% owned. So it's like, so where do I go? Where do I go? I mean, yeah, obviously I can play one of those guys, sure, but I mean, it's like, am I gaining any leverage? I'm still playing a 30+% fighter. So like, show me where there's variance, where I could go to a variance size. So that's why I'm looking like the Court McGee, Matt Brown fight, like the two old guys, right? I'm looking at the Jessica Rose Clark. Like if people are going to play Lisboa because of a line value, then maybe Lisboa. She's beaten five women with like no records. So maybe she's off. Maybe she's absolutely awful and gets starched by Jessica Rose Clark. It could be the other way also, right? I mean, you don't know. We haven't seen her. So I'm looking at that. I'm like, okay, where maybe Jessica Rose Clark, maybe Court McGee, right? You look at the Kim Bohm fight. I think more likely people play Mandy Bohm because what other underdogs are there, right? People are just like, oh, it's low-level women's MMA. Play the underdog, which most of the time works out, right? So maybe you play Ji-Yeon Kim. She is going to be the lowest owned favorite. Play her. I don't have to worry that much about the rest of my lineup as much, right? Is there variance there? No. This fight is like minus 8 million to go to the cards. So the likelihood of someone putting up 100 points is pretty low. So you take a look and you go, who can knock someone out? It's like Bateria could knock Ulberg out, I guess, maybe. I know he's a 4-1 underdog, right? Sherman, Rosenstruck, like it's like, okay. Rosenstruck, yeah, maybe Rosenstruck can knock Jalen Almeida out, but I think he's also going to be overowned because he's in the main event. Oh, it's a 5-round fight. Got to play a 5-round fight. I don't think this fight goes 5 rounds. So like, where's this variance? Where am I getting this variance from? Like, I don't know. Chase Sherman. I mean, that's why I'm like, oh, Chase Sherman, right? If Carl Williams is going to be 40% owned, Chase Sherman's leverage, right? If Ulberg's going to be 40% owned, Bateria is leverage. But I mean, obviously, these guys are dependent on like first round knockouts, right? It's unlikely that Bateria or Sherman win via decision. So it's not like the type of thing is like, oh, decision win 62 point type of underdogs. No, they're either going to put up 80, 90, 100 points, or they're going to put up like 17 points or nothing or less than that. This is the main reason I don't find this slate all that appealing at all. At all. Before the show, I started withdrawing entries. Down to 50 now. I think I had 75 before. Now I'm down to 50. Maybe I'll be down to 40. And if I were to play 555 entry, I'm not even sure what that would be. That's why I'm not even sure to play. I mean, I'm just looking, going, if I were to play, like, obviously, I think Almeida is by far. I mean, if I'm going to play one of the 9K guys, it's just going to be Jalen Almeida. But Ulberg fits the thing of, like, Ulberg fits the fighter that people should not play as much of, that I could get leverage over. But I don't even think that's going to happen because now we're down to 11 fights. Like, I would think that Almeida is like 6. Like, I would expect Almeida to be 60+% owned, Williams to be 50+% owned, and Ulberg be like 26%. And be like, oh, well, I'm going to play Ulberg. He's twice as less owned as Williams. But I don't think that's going to happen. He's minus 175 inside the distance. I still think he's going to be 35 to 40% owned. So it's like, where am I finding leverage? Where am I finding variance? Unless I'm going to play a lineup where I'm just playing 600. Okay, everyone's playing Almeida. I'll play Rosenstruck. And I'll play Sherman and Bateria in the lineup. I'll play the opponents of all 3 9K fighters. And then play Ji-Yeon Kim and Alex Morono and Court McGee, who have a combined total of like 3 finishes in 74 years between them. And just hope for an asteroid, the something that comes with as often as the Halley's Comet to happen. Like, I mean, you can, I guess. I don't think that's very likely. Just hoping for chaos. I'm hoping for a fight to be canceled that everyone has. I mean, I don't know and that's the problem on this card. The playing lineups that are reasonable, that aren't too heavily duplicated. But we'll be talking about it tomorrow on Crunch Time. Go check that out. Tentatively scheduled for 10:45 in the morning, right? So even earlier than this show, right? A good thing on Saturdays I'm up earlier, right? Because I play Premier League soccer, so I'll be up for the 10 a.m. soccer slate. So you don't have to worry about me getting up tomorrow. So I'll be making my lineups, answering some questions. Remember, programming note. DFS pregame show. We're on break. I'm on vacation. till June 1st, okay? June 1st. Submit your questions while I'm gone. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. Because most of the shows, you submit questions, I give you the answers, right? Explain concepts, teach you statistics, math, DFS strategy, sports betting, prop betting, anything you want. So get your questions in. So I have a nice stack of stuff. So when I get back on the 1st, so if you don't see my face in a clip, in a thumbnail here on YouTube, I didn't get fired, right? Because I guarantee it. I've repeated this like every day this week. And I know I'm going to get at least 2 or 3 DMs of like, are you no longer with RotoGrinders? That's like, have you watched the show? Do you watch the shows? I have no idea. I never understand it. But give me those thummy thumbs on your way out the door. Thummy thumbs, thummy thumbs. Everybody loves the like button, right? Smash that like button. Smash the subscribe button. We got a big MLB card today. MLB Slate, 13 games. So obviously here on the channel, there'll be Grinders Live. There'll be Crunch Time. There'll be this golf stuff going on. We got soccer projections, right, for the EPL slate tomorrow. That season's coming to a close pretty soon. And yeah, so I'm going to be going to Alaska. Well, I mean, if you're here for Crunch Time tomorrow, I'll be here tomorrow, right, tomorrow morning. But after that, I won't be back until you won't see me on a show until June 1st. So I'll be going to Alaska, then Las Vegas, and then back here, answering your DFS strategy questions like I normally do, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.